Over the last 12 plus years of my gardening journey, I've grown potatoes in almost every method you could imagine, including 8 different methods we're testing right behind me. So much so that I even tried to live off of them in 2019. I grew about 100 pounds and lost about 10 pounds trying to survive off of them, but I had some success, but I want more success. And if you love potatoes, if you don't, probably unsubscribe from this channel, you probably want an easy method in small space with not a lot of time effort, but with maximum yields. So I hit my friend Tony up from Simplify Gardening over in the UK, and he sent me not only his secret potato growing method, but his secret potato growing buckets. And I'm gonna give them a try, both the method and the container in this video. The method starts, as you might imagine, with a potato. So this is a russet seed potato, and seed potato just means it's a potato specially bred to be disease-free and really great for growing more potatoes. So what you see here is an eye that's sprouting, and you want to keep 2 of these eyes using Tony's method. And this is where we differ right away. I've never done this before. I'm going to chip out every other eye so the potato only focuses on 2 sprouts. So I'll choose this one because it's coming up, very vigorously right now, and then I'll choose this one. So that means that this sprout here, here, and here, as well as a couple of these other ones, all have to go. Be very careful when you chip this out with a knife. I just kind of like to take a knife and do a little round cut here and make sure you get that out. So what that does is it prevents the potato from producing any more sprouts except for the 2 that you really want to emphasize. So it looks a little worse for the wear, but it'll be completely fine when we plant it. Our potatoes have been de-eyed, save for 2 per potato, and now we need to think about what kind of soil mix we're using. This is super important with a container potato grow. So I have my 3 buckets. They're actually filled with 2 different ingredients. So first off, I have some peat moss that we had laying around. You could use coconut coir as well. This is just kind of some stuff that we had laying around. And then Tony recommends using compost, but when British gardeners use the word compost, it's not the exact same thing sometimes as what we mean here in America when you use the word compost. What we mean is compost that you actually broke down, usually on your own property. And so that's what we have here. So it's 50-50 of peat and our own homemade compost. And before we mix that up, which we're just gonna mix it in pretty much evenly as we can, let's talk about the bucket real quick. It's a 7-gallon or 30-liter bucket, and there's no functional difference between it and, let's say, any other container, except for the way that the bottom's designed. You have these side slits that are cut in, which I think is really nice for drainage. And then you also have these upraised sections. There's 6 of them that allows water to flow out of the system, and there's more drainage cut into those sides. So just make sure that you don't rot out your potatoes. But in contrast to something like maybe a grow bag, these sides are completely sealed, so they won't lose a ton of water. So what I'm gonna do now is just mix these ingredients up in my Gorilla Cart here as best I can. We're mixed up, and now we just need to fill the containers. And this again is where the method differs from what I've personally done in the past. So we're gonna fill these up to about 1/3, and then we're gonna fertilize, and then we're gonna place our potatoes, and then we're actually gonna fill the containers up all the way. So there's no hilling in this container potato method. We're gonna go in with 3 fertilizers as a blend. We're gonna do 3 ounces at this 1/3 depth of soil per container. So we're going in with fish meal, which is high on the N and the P part of NPK, so the nitrogen and the phosphorus. So we'll do about 1 ounce of that per. We're gonna go in with blood meal, which is very, very high on the nitrogen, 1200. And then we're gonna go in with an all-purpose. And you could do maybe a bone meal here too, which is Tony's recommendation, but this is what I've got on hand. And these are organic granular fertilizers. They'll break down slowly over time. And of course, we're putting these right at the future root zone of where our potatoes are going to sprout. So when we place our potatoes in, what we're gonna do is put 1 potato right here and 1 potato right here, and you want that sprout facing upwards. So that sprout's going up, and these 2 sprouts are gonna be going up as well. And then we'll cover this up to about 2/3, right about there or so. And our next move is to put potatoes on the opposite sides, so where the handles are. So we'll put one right there, and we'll put another one right there. And now we're gonna do another round of that 3 ounces of organic fertilizer. So there's my fish meal. Here's my all-purpose, and here is my blood meal. And we're just gonna mix this around in the top layer here. We'll cover this up completely, leaving about an inch from the top. So that's about good. And then we're gonna top it off right away with mulch. And I'm just going with some shredded straw mulch here, which will keep the moisture in. We're mixed up, we are mulched up. Now it's time to water up. Give it a nice healthy water because we are sprouting, so the potatoes are chitting, they can take it without rotting, and the mixture wasn't too moist when I first filled it in. But what we're doing now is we're really waiting for those potatoes to come all the way up, because in this method, like I said, you're not hilling. So those sprouts have to break the top. That's why we put this mulch on here. We want to keep this nice and warm, keep that water in there. And then the only other thing I'll mention is that we did decide to grow a couple different varieties. So we have our russet, we have a Yukon Gold, and we have a red Norland, just to see if there's any difference in results. But I'll see you when we see some sprouts popping out of the top of these. We're back after just a couple weeks, and I'm happy to say, my friends, we have potatoes coming out of all of these pretty quickly, which shows the importance of having your potatoes chitted or sprouting when you plant them. It does speed this process up, although it is not required. So over here we have the Yukon Gold, which seems to be the most vigorous right now. Then we have the Norland Red, and then we have the russet, and you can barely tell, but all three of those russet are coming up. So at this point, all I've really been doing is keeping them well watered. And the way to know is to dig that mulch aside, throw a finger down in, and just measure how wet that soil is. I can even tell, because that soil has been clinging to my finger down to the first knuckle, that I probably don't need to water this right now. And if you follow Simplified Gardening's guide, you would install something like drip irrigation. If you're growing like a ton of these in a row, maybe 2 rows of 10 or something like that, the most efficient way to water would be to run a line of drip over the top and have it just trickle down, or pull lines of drip into each of these. But if you're a little bit less irrigation savvy, it's totally fine. You can come in with a watering can or a hose and just hit them every so often. You just want to make sure you don't rot the potato out, or even some of those feeder roots that are helping to develop all these potatoes. So what we're doing now, these were in my greenhouse, or not really in the sun as they were starting to sprout up, but now that I do have some vegetation, some potato tops coming out, I can't be keeping them out of the light. I gotta keep them right here in full sun. That's what they're gonna want, especially if you're in the springish time. As you get towards a summer, maybe a later planting of potatoes, that heat can be a little bit distressing, so you may want to give them partial shade. But for now, it's early spring right now. I have no problem leaving these in full sun, keeping them well watered, and checking in with you as we get closer towards the flower development of the potato plant. A lot of people don't know this, but it will produce a flower, and sometimes even what's called a potato berry. And it's important to know what to do at that point, because it can really affect your potato yield. So while those babies are growing up, I came out to my in-ground potato patch to show you what happens later in their life. So take a look at these guys right here. Counterintuitively, potatoes actually produce a fruit, the potato berry right here. This comes from, of course, the potato flower that will form. It's a little yellow guy usually that'll show up at the top here. And a lot of people get a little weirded out when they see that. They go, what am I supposed to do now? Well, it's actually a good sign. What it means is that the potato plant as a whole has developed enough that something called new potatoes are forming underground, roughly around the time you see the flowers, and especially by the time you see the berries. If you wanted to, you could dig up or dump out your buckets and find a lot of smaller potatoes that you could enjoy as new potatoes, which are prized in the kitchen. But if you do see this, don't freak out. There's nothing wrong with it at all. You can leave them on the plant and let it continue to grow until it starts to die back, which is what's about to happen. And on a blustery day in May, my potatoes in buckets have finally died back. So we're gonna dump them in my Gorilla Cart, who actually sponsored the video. We've used Gorilla Cart for many years now. I love this thing. We went out to Georgia actually to do an install, and we had the full line of Gorilla Cart out there with our friend Claudia, and we were using this dump feature like crazy. Look at that. It dumps completely out. You know when you have like a normal wheelbarrow and there's that little bit at the bottom, and if you have OCD like me, you get a little bit annoyed by that and then you start freaking out? You don't have to do that with this. You just go like that, and then you can actually even move the wheels, the real wheel. Not only that, the turning radius is crazy. You can turn it like that. Like, that's actually a wild feature, and it's super, super sturdy. So we love Gorilla Cart, 1,200 pound capacity on the 7 cubic foot. Hopefully I have 1,200 pounds of potatoes. I doubt it, but hopefully I have some. So let's go ahead and find out. We're gonna dump in our Yukon Golds first. This is ideally when you wanna do it. They're died back. Not only that, they're died back for a while now. So they should have some really nice potatoes in here. So let's find out. Let's go Yukon Gold first. Remember, we only put in 3 potatoes here, guys, so we got quite a bit out. These are not the Yukon Golds, they're probably the Norlands. But let's find out what we got next. Okay, here we go. Oh, you know it's good when you see it bulging. See it bulging at the edge there. A little smaller on these guys, but still pretty respectable. Alrighty, 3rd time's the charm, let's go. Oh, I'm feeling good about this one. Not bad on the true Yukon Golds. If you remember, we put 3 small seed potatoes of each variety in these 7-gallon containers, and we got 5 to 8 times as many potatoes out. I'm pretty pleased with that. I think I could boost these yields even more with a couple tweaks. I would probably keep them a bit better watered than I did. I think in my climate, compared to the UK where Tony's from, I just need to water them a little bit more often. And then number 2, I would put a dilute liquid fertilizer in some of those watering sessions to see if I could get the foliage of the potatoes a lot bigger and then transition them into sizing up the actual tubers underground. But I'm very pleased with this method, and it shows that you can grow a ton of food in a small space. If you want all of our potato videos, check out these playlists right over here. Thanks to Tony for sharing his method with us, and we'll see you next time. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.